how important would you think as an influencer would it be to trademark your Instagram handle?
Well, depends. Do you want to constantly play whack-a-mole with infringers? Do you want it to make it more easy to confront your infringers? I mean, it's really hard to do that without a trademark registration. So, if you've got an Instagram handle that you like and value, you should probably register that as a trademark.
Okay.
It's going to make enforcement of that a lot easier. When you don't have a trademark, you don't have anything to back up, right? So all you can say is sort of a wimpy, hey, I was using that first. And what's that? That's nothing. When you have a registered trademark, you can say, I'm the owner of this registered trademark, and you better stop, because if you don't, I'm going to sue you. And if you keep going, I'm going to sue you for triple damages plus attorney's fees. There's a lot of monetary risk for an infringer. So.
Okay. So my Instagram name is Strat Daddy.
Okay. You could register that as a trademark.
Right. And
probably find something.
Right. Possibly might. But then it does, when it comes to URLs, it doesn't matter if that person owns the URL, they own the URL and you have to buy it from them. Yeah.
If somebody else owns the URL and you get the registered trademark for it, you don't have the right, just because you now own the trademark, to steal their URL from them. Now, if you get the trademark and then somebody goes to grab the URL, then we can make a case for that, right?
Has that ever happened?
Yeah, it's happened. Like, people will try to register things like, Coca-Cola.video or something like that when the new top level domains come out, and Coca-Cola's like, nope, sorry, UDIRAction, we're going to take that from you. So, I mean, and word gets around pretty quickly, and they don't have to pay you anything for it either. They can just take it.
Really? And they can just be like, all right, yeah, no, you're gone.
I mean, we might offer you something just because it's easier than the litigation. But, if you're thinking that Coca-Cola is going to offer you $100,000 for that, no, they'll just say, I mean, if I was Coca-Cola's attorney, I would just say, no, we're not offering you anything. We're just going to litigate and take it from you.
Yeah. We'll
no, I mean, we don't have to bleed you to death. We'll just file it. And when you don't answer because you're broke, right? That's why you're scamming. You're scamming because you're broke. When you don't answer, we'll just say, okay, great. Now we win. Thank you. Bye-bye. You get nothing. And they get nothing.
Yeah.
And I have threatened people with that too. Basically, we'll buy it from you for what you paid for it. Prove what you paid for it. You paid $200. Great. We'll pay you $200. You can either accept it, or we'll file a uniform domain rights complaint, and we will take it from you, and you will get nothing. And it will cost us more, but we don't care.
I like you.
No, I'm not even playing games with these stupid scammers. I won't do it, because once you give in to one, what happens is word gets around, because all the scammers hang out together, right? Birds of a feather. So then it just creates more problems, right? Whereas if they learn that, nope, Coca-Cola doesn't play, Chanel doesn't play. If you get a Chanel domain, they will not pay you for it. They'll just steal it from you.
Really?
Yep. And we can do that.
So I was listening to a podcast the other day, and this dude made millions of dollars off of, let's say, fudged keyword URL traffic.
Fudged?
Yes. Like, let's say it's stratdaddy.com, but it's only with one Y instead of two Ys. And he ran a bunch of traffic to it. This is before the algorithms changed.
Okay.
And he made a ton of money doing that. Could anybody take any action if someone, let's say someone did that?
If I'm Coca-Cola and somebody's putting Coca-Cola with 2 A's, I'm just going to go take their domain.
Okay.
I mean, so that's one of those situations where, since I don't know who he's up against. Yeah. Like, if it were Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola would just take it. If it were one of my clients, I wouldn't give you any money. We would just go in and take it.
Okay. Awesome. So what should people mainly trademark? Like, so it's a bunch of entrepreneurs who listen to this primarily. So what should they think about trademarking besides their company name? And should they even trademark their company name? Because some companies aren't, let's say, branded that strong, in my opinion.
Right. So just because you have a company name doesn't necessarily mean that you should register that as a trademark. There are a lot of company names that are not like forward facing, right? Like think about Colgate Palmolive. You don't have Colgate Palmolive toothpaste, right? Like I think Colgate Palmolive owns Crest. So there's like an umbrella brand, right? Colgate Palmolive, which they probably do have registered as a trademark. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but there's no such thing as Colgate Palmolive anything. There's Colgate toothpaste, there's Crest toothpaste, there's Palmolive dish soap, there's Tide detergent. At this point, I kind of forget who owns who, right? But what I'm saying is there are a bunch of consumer products brands. I'm going to turn on my light. It's getting dark. Here we go. That's better. So there are a bunch of consumer products, sort of like brand companies, these huge conglomerates that have brands that are registered as trademarks that aren't necessarily the same word as the company itself, like Colgate Palmolive, right? So what I recommend is if you are using a brand name to sell something, register that as a trademark. It doesn't matter if it's the same name as your company name, right? Like my company name is Angela V. Langlotz, a professional corporation. My brand is Trademark Doctor. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to register, and in fact, you can't register a trademark for a word that you're not using or a term that you're not using to offer goods and services to the consuming public. So if you're not offering, goods or services under company name, you actually can't register that as a trademark because you're not using it as a trademark. You have to be able to
just think of it like a URL, like how everybody will go up and like, hey, that's a good URL. I'm gonna go buy that. You can't just, hey, that's a good name. I should probably go trademark that.
You can, but eventually you're going to have to show use of that trademark on something.
Okay.
Right. So you can register it. It's a free country. You can apply, but at some point in the trademark process, you are going to have to show the trademark office that you are using that term in conjunction with the offer for sale or the sale of some goods and services to some consumer, someplace, somewhere. Okay. You can't just say there's no such thing as squatting on trademark rights in trademark land. Like you can't do that. At some point, in order to acquire the trademark rights, you are going to have to show use of the trademark in commerce, right? Like somebody asked me, can I get a trademark for spite? Right? kind of reminds me of one of those Seinfeld episodes. Why does Jerry want to return this item? For spite, he says. And the clerk says, you can't return an item for spite. And he's like, what do you mean I can't return it for, anyway, so you can't get a trademark purely out of spite. You have to, at some point, use it. Right. Okay. So remember, so people forget why we have trademarks in the first place. People think, oh, trademarks are for trademark owners. No, that is not why we have trademarks. We have trademarks to enable the consumer to distinguish between different goods and services in the marketplace. Remember, trademarks came about because they're basically like a maker's mark, right? So somebody in the olden days created a something, right? Like a silversmith. He had a silversmith and he had his maker's mark that he stamped on it and said, this is from so-and-so silversmith. Well, those sorts of maker's marks are trademarks, right? They enabled consumers to distinguish between his silversmithing and someone else's silversmithing, or this pottery maker and this other pottery maker. So people use trademarks to distinguish between different goods and services. Like if I told you, Stratton, that when I go shoe shopping, I never want to buy the swoosh shoes. I only buy the 3 stripy shoes because the swoosh shoes are too wide in the heel And so my heel moves around and I get blisters, and the 3 stripy shoes have a narrower heel that fits me better. Now, you know what shoes, what brands I'm talking about without me even saying anything, because we as consumers know what the swoosh is and what the 3 stripy is, right? I don't even have to tell you. But that's an example of how consumers use brands to distinguish certain qualities of the goods and services just by looking at the brand, right? Like the Nikes, those don't fit me, the heel's too wide, so I always buy the Adidas because they fit me better. That's it, right? So that's why we have trademarks. So to circle back, this is a really long segue. So to circle back, if you're not using a trademark in commerce to sell things, you don't have any reason to have a trademark if you're not selling things, right? So if you're not using the trademark to sell things, there's no reason for you to have a trademark, thus no right for you to use the trademark.